right, good morning, everyone. Let's call the meeting of the Tulsa Municipal Airport Trust special meeting to orders.
We're good.
Are we good?
Yep.
Very good. Approve the minutes of the December 14th, 2023 meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Approve grant of right of way to entry to the Oklahoma Natural Gas Company to rebuild the gas meter.
Yes, as part of the American Airlines expansion, they're rebuilding the gas meter. And they're on number 3, they're putting in a natural gas pipeline. That's just, we're giving them the right to do that. All the facilities that they're rebuilding are on TMAT land, not TAIT. So,
Okay.
Can we take the two of them together?
Yeah, sure.
Move approval 2 and 3.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor? All right. We
Second.
are adjourned.
That may have been
Now I'll open the meeting of the, oops, get back over here. Combined special meeting and regular meetings of the Tulsa Airports Improvement Trust and Tulsa Airport Authority, Thursday, May 9th, 2024. Call the special meeting and combined meeting to order.
thank you.
We approve the minutes of the April 9th meetings.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Operating and financial reports.
All right, I'll kick things off. First, I would like to officially welcome Mr. Pursley to your first airport meeting. Glad to have you here and look forward to educating you on all the exciting things happening at the airport. It's a great time to be a representative on the airport board. I know you're filling in as the mayor's designee, and we look forward to your input on the important work that we're doing. So glad to have you here. I have a few updates. My report's going to be fairly short today because the rest of the meeting has a lot of meaty information and updates. But I did just want to highlight a few events that have taken place since our last board meeting. We had our ribbon cutting event on Earth Day for our EV charging stations. So we have 16 new stations, which provide 32 parking spaces. They're located in the garage on the ground level in the back of the garage to provide, easy, familiar access for our customers. We have an opportunity to secure additional grant funding for more chargers, but at this point we're going to monitor utilization of these and determine whether or not an investment is needed now for additional chargers. Even though the grant funds would pay for a good portion of them, I think until we start seeing more adoption from our customer base of the technology, we're not going to make any further investments. But glad to have these in place. Appreciate PSO and their partnership, INCOG, and the $500,000 grant that they provided. And I look forward to seeing how our customers utilize it.
How are we going to let people know that they're there?
So we've been sharing it on social media. It's on our website. If they're marked, they're labeled as green spaces. They have green paint and markings. I think, and this is just my observation, I think people who drive hybrid vehicles or EV vehicles tend to look for that information prior to coming out. And so it's just key having it on our website. So when they do search, it's there.
Okay.
Also on Earth Day, we spent a lot of time doing cleanup around the airport. We held our second big FOD walk, which we had 32 employees participate from several different companies. And we gathered 94 pounds of debris out on the airfield, which is a couple of pounds higher than last year. This is something we'll continue to do twice a year. It's just a fun way to get everybody engaged in a safety-focused mindset on the importance of keeping FOD off of the airfield. And then we did a similar thing on the land side, and our employees volunteered to pick up litter all along the airport entrance roads, finding all kinds of things. It gets buried in the grass sometimes, and so it's not as visible. But it's important that the first impression that people have when they arrive to Tulsa is one that reflects, the values that we have for our city, which is we want to maintain a clean environment. We want to have a positive first impression. And so I appreciate our employees for spending some time outside of their normal duties to help us pick up the airport and make it look great. We also celebrated National Volunteer Week. We have about 150 volunteers. In 2023, our volunteers donated 20,340 hours. So we have the volunteers at the desk from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., just depending on the location. They're here every day of the week. We have roamers, we have the welcome wagon. Our volunteer program is truly, I think, one of the best in the country. Many airports are having to transition to paid customer service staff members just after COVID. It's been hard to get volunteers to come back on a regular basis, but I think it's a credit to the management of our volunteer program that our volunteers are excited and engaged and love coming to spend their time here.
What are their age range? What's their age range?
So with the welcome wagon, we have a few younger members. For the regular desks, it's 55 and up. I was visiting yesterday with Bob McKim, who's 97 years old and has volunteered here for 20 years. And he comes out twice a week to the airport, Mondays and Wednesdays. So just a great group of dedicated individuals who really enjoy having the opportunity to socialize and also serve our customers. So.
Good.
And then also we participated in Girls in Aviation Day on April 27th. This year it was hosted at Tulsa Air and Space Museum. We had over 250 students come out, and airport team members gave some of the students who signed up a tour of the terminal as part of their daily activities. This is an event that has grown every year. An OSU professor and one of her students organize that every year, and I think it just is a testament to the commitment that they have to grow the aviation pipeline in Tulsa. So continue to hope to see that event grow. And with that, I'm going to pause and turn it over to Bernadetta to give the financial update.
Good morning. We're going to look at March 24 to March 23 fiscal year to date through March for both fiscal years. Our revenues, this is the good news, they're up 3% for comparing the month of March to March. And the fiscal year to date is up 7%. That's attributable to landing fees, our gate use fees, our terminal revenue with our food and beverage concession and our other concessions. Our interest income is up like $1 million over last year, and our CFC revenue is also up. Expenses are up 21% when comparing March to March, but only 10% for the fiscal year to date. So in March of 24, we did have a performance bonus. But in March of 23, we had an $80,000 credit to our medical insurance. It was an incentive for us to stay with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So that makes it swing pretty widely. Also, you know, our parking expenses are up because they're more fully staffed. Our utilities are up a little bit, and we had some technology related expenses. And doing some landscaping around the airport. You'll notice it looks very nice. So our net is down 14% from last March, but we're still up 3% for the fiscal year to date comparison. Our food and beverage and retail, their gross revenues show a decrease of 3% from March to March, but they still, when combined, they have $800,000 more in their revenue for the fiscal year to date comparisons. The parking activity is down 4% comparing March to March, but it's relatively flat for the fiscal year. The revenues is down 7% for March to March, but up 3% for the fiscal year to date comparison. The rent-a-car gross revenues is just modestly up 1% for both comparisons. The rent-a-car transaction days, though, are up 9% from March to March and 7% for fiscal year to fiscal year. RVS operations are down 22% in March and also down 3% for the fiscal year to date. You know, the runway's been closed off and on periodically throughout the year. So hopefully that will start to improve, and likewise, the flow fees are down in March and just slightly down down 5% for the fiscal year to date comparison. In-plane cargo just continues to be down when comparing month to month and fiscal year to fiscal year. The in-plane passengers, I'm gonna move on to this next slide. We're actually down 3% from March to March. We're up 3% when comparing the fiscal year to date to fiscal year to date. We're holding steady at calendar year to calendar year, like 0.25 above calendar year 23. Alexis can help me out here. Spring break covered was 1 week for Arkansas and Oklahoma this year, but it was 2 weeks last year, so we got a little bit more benefit. And there's also wrestling. Last year, there's also a wrestling championship held in Tulsa.
Yeah, so spring break in Oklahoma is always the third week of March, and traditionally Arkansas is the week following. This year they were the same week. So the capacity we had was all utilized in 1 week versus getting to spread that out and take advantage of that. And so we certainly felt that in our numbers this year. And then with the wrestling tournament, you know, being here, a national wrestling tournament that brought people from all over the country to Tulsa, I think helped us fill those seats last year. And so those two things combined, and airline capacity was down, our scheduled seats were down compared to last year as well. So all of those things I think impacted March numbers.
This next slide is budget to actual for the fiscal year to date, March to March. So the revenues are up 12% or $4.2 million. That's due to our landing fees, our food and beverage, considering our other terminal concessions. Our nautical leases had a pretty good increase for the fiscal year to date. Parking is up about 900,000, and the rent-a-car commissions are up about 200,000, but the ground transportation is also up 157,000 more than last year because we implemented a drop-off fee also in January. So we're seeing some good revenue based on that decision. RVS is up about 7% for the year. And our miscellaneous revenues is what I mentioned before. Our interest is $1 million above budget, with our CFC revenues about 231,000 above budget. Expenses are below budget for 4% or about $800,000. You know, our medical is running a little bit under where we budgeted. Our materials and supplies is just about $60,000 under what we budgeted. And our services, we're a little slow on starting our marketing campaign for the year, but it's kicking off now. Our consulting's down, and our planned technology is actually down from where we had budgeted. Oops. This next slide just shows our total cash position at the end of March. We have $92.1 million in the bank, gearing up to start paying for the FIS and air traffic control tower. Per the AULA, we have 354 days of cash on hand. So any questions?
Good report.
Thank you.
Okay. That's it, yeah.
Start item 4.
So item 4 is to approve a mutual option to extend the term of the agreement and amendment number 1 to the airport airline use and lease agreement effective July 1st, 2024 with our signatory carriers, American Delta, Southwest United, FedEx, and UPS. And I've prepared a few slides just to go over the AULA. Now, we've been working on this with our airlines for many months. When we first sat down with them to talk about amending and extending the agreement, we had a list of goals that we wanted to achieve. We wanted to update the pre-approved capital improvement plan. And so we have the CIP that Frank puts together every year that is a guiding document for the FAA. And we wanted to make sure that that list mirrored the list that we had in the pre-approved plan, because then we don't have to go back to the airlines to get approval for future capital needs during the term of the agreement. So we were able to update that. We wanted to make sure the lease reflected, the exhibits reflected the actual square footage. So we went in and remeasured the spaces and cleared up some inconsistencies. And we also wanted to remove the days on hand calculation. So right now our lease agreement requires us to share airline revenues, but only if our days of cash reach a 365-day threshold. That was really the goal of this agreement, was to help us build our days of cash. And in prior years, we were sharing 50% of revenue collected, which really stifled our ability to put cash reserves in for project needs. And so because we now have been able to build up cash, the airlines always are questioning how we are getting to the calculation, even though it's outlined in the agreement very clearly how we calculate it. It was a point of contention, and so we wanted to remove that from the discussion. We wanted to make sure that we kept our costs reasonable. And so the airlines have had fixed rates in Tulsa since fiscal year 18, which started July 1st of 2017. And as we all know, there have been inflationary pressures on all of us. And so they have benefited for the past 5 years of being able to operate on a cost structure from 2017. And then we also wanted to, as we were thinking about changing the rates, we also want to be mindful that it is a lot to go from 2017 numbers to today numbers. And so we wanted to find solutions that were reasonable, but still allowed TAIT to collect money to offset operating costs. We want to continue to work on improving our cash position as well. In our industry, especially after COVID, we learned that having 180 days of cash, which is where we started, is not sustainable. If we were to have another pandemic, we really need to have at a minimum 365 days of cash on hand, and with the ability to pivot if we need to, depending on operational challenges. There were some other things we wanted to accomplish in this agreement, which we did not. The number one thing was the MII clause of the agreement, which basically gives the airlines the authority to approve projects. We want to take that out. We believe if this board thinks a project needs to take place, this board should be able to have the approval authority. Whereas today, if the project is over $1 million or if combined projects exceed $5 million, then we have to go back and consult with the airlines. And so we were not able to take that provision out of this. However, because we got the air traffic control tower and the FIS, which are our two biggest projects included in this amendment, we think we've done well. This is a 3-year agreement. And so when we go to start negotiating the next agreement, we will be working to get that MII clause taken out of the agreement. One of the big things that we addressed in this agreement is how we allocate baggage claim space. So in the legacy provisions back from 2008 on, when we were negotiating with the airlines after coming off a 30-year residual agreement, one of the steps that was made was to decrease the airline share of the cost of baggage claim. So they were only paying 1/3 of the cost of baggage claim, which at other airports, the airlines pay 100% of their allocated space costs. And so we wanted to fix that with this amendment. And what we are doing is charging them now for a stair-step increase all the way by fiscal year 27, so that they're paying 100% of those costs. So in fiscal year 25, they're going to pay 70% of the baggage claim costs. In fiscal year 26, they're going to pay 85%. And then by fiscal year 27, it'll be 100%. And that way, when we go to negotiate the next rates, we'll be able to be on a level playing field, and they won't be asking for a continuation of that reduced fee. I wanted to just kind of share an update regarding landing fee rate. So the gray bar is the rate that they've been paying, the fixed rate. I added the orange bar in the middle that shows the inflation adjusted rate. So if nothing else changed, just based on inflation, what that number would look like. And then the bar on the right is what the proposed rate would be for fiscal year 25. I want to just point out the landing fee is a residual fee. So we take all the revenues we receive from the airfield and deduct that as a credit to that cost center. And so as we continue to grow, in fact, today you're going to approve a new agreement or an amendment to an agreement for US Aviation for an additional hangar. And we had Quick Trip that added another hangar. And as we get additional airfield revenues, that offsets the landing fee costs for the airlines. And so that's why you don't see the new rate mirroring the rate that the inflation adjusted rate. And so the $3.72 will likely decrease as we go throughout the next budget cycle. So one good thing about this agreement is the rates are based on budget. We do not have to go back and recalculate them and provide a credit based on actual costs. But for the next fiscal year, when we look at the budget, we will make adjustments. And so the rate may come down next fiscal year for the gaming fee. Now, terminal rentals are a little bit different. And again, flat rate at $68.94, and this is a blended rate. So they are charged different rates depending on the space. So the customer facing rates are higher than the back of office rates. But the blended rate of $68.94, inflation adjusted goes to $87.96. Our rate is $92.40, and that's really because we're adding the baggage claim space in. And so that's a 5% increase over the inflation rate to account for them paying for the baggage claim space. Any questions before I go on about that? Okay, so additional provisions. So they did approve the CIP with a 10% contingency. We carried over the MII provision, which I already talked about. One of the things that we did is for the FIS, typically when a major project is complete, we began charging amortizations the year following the project completion date. We agreed to hold off on the amortization charge until fiscal year 28, which is more than likely 1 year after what we would normally do. And again, that's just because we're charging for the baggage claim space and we wanted to decrease the impact to our air carriers on the additional costs. We are outlining in the agreement the preferential use rights. So they have 90 minutes to operate from their gates. And they can have a preferential gate as long as they have 4 or more turns at that gate per day. Again, these are just operating procedures to make sure the airport still maintains control over the gate utilization. The baggage system allocation, and it's an 80%, 80-20 calculation. So 20% of the charges are shared across the signatory carriers. 80% of them are determined by enplaned passengers. And then non-signatory carriers pay a 25% premium on the rates that signatory carriers pay. And again, I kind of already hit on the residual charges for the airfield and the terminal rental rates. And then the revenue sharing is a part of this agreement. I know that this board hasn't been a fan of revenue sharing in the past. However, I think it's a very fair way to keep the airline costs from getting any higher than they are. So we've agreed to share 10% of revenues, net revenues collected, and we cap that at the amount of revenues we receive from our food and beverage concessionaires. So this year, based on our budget calculations, we're expecting about 1.3 million in revenue sharing going back to the airlines, and that'll go back either in the form of a credit, or as Burdetta said, some of them like to have the check cut to them. But it will not be more than what we're projecting our food and beverage revenues, which right now are at 2.1 million. So as we're thinking about airline cost per enplanement, which is one of the metrics Burdetta will hit on in the budget, we have it right now based at, I think, around 1031, 1061.
1051.
But it will go down based on revenue sharing. And so that number that we have in the budget for CPE does not formulate or correlate to the projected revenue sharing.
Do we get to know, they get to see what it costs for each passenger here? Do we get to see what they make?
No, we do not.
Okay.
Now let me reframe that. So we can pull, airlines are required to report to DOT revenue, but we don't get a breakdown of how that revenue is allocated for the aircraft. So we can look at revenue per available seat mile.
Right.
But we don't get any insight as to baggage revenue, ancillary revenues from revenues on board the aircraft. And really, I mean, the airlines are making a ton of money through ancillary revenue charges. So,
And this is really the way they determine what kind of an investment they're gonna make here, is how much money they can make. That's really what it boils down to.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, Tulsa is traditionally a very high yield market for airlines. And so, they do well. I think, you know, the concern has always been, let's focus on costs to keep our costs low to be competitive. The reality is airport costs are such a small portion of airline revenue. It's important, and the airlines would make us think that it's the most important, but you know, fuel, crew time, aircraft utilization time, there are so many other factors that go into that calculation. Our intent is just to make sure that we're charging a reasonable fee for the services that we provide. And you're seeing airports really dive into facility expansions and terminal expansions. And there are airports that are doubling their CPE. Andrew shared with us, there's an airport that's one of our peer airports that's quadrupling their CPE. And so, you know, it's a different time for airports. We are in a great position because I think we've really invested in our terminal over the years. We started in 2012 doing that. And while many airports are saying, let's build something new, I think we have a great airport. It's functionally doing well and has the ability to grow as our passenger demand grows.
In terms of competition, with the increased baggage claim, increased airline fees and landing fees, where do we stand in comparison to our competitors
Yes.
or similar airports around?
So I asked our consultant to share with us any CPE information that they have. And so we have CPE information, but it's based on fiscal year 22 and 23 data. So the fiscal year 25 data won't be available for us to benchmark against for a while. Traditionally, we're right in the middle of the pack. And so, for instance, Will Rogers, Oklahoma City, is currently at $4.24 as their CPE. But that doesn't include their terminal expansion and the debt service for their terminal improvements that they completed last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago now. So those are going to be coming online, and we're going to see that their CPE goes up. Also, they have oil and gas and have the ability to offset airline fees using oil and gas revenue. So 424 is the low from our peers, which is our friends down the street. 1711 is the high, which is Birmingham. And there's just a range in between. And I think one of the numbers I looked at was the average. I don't think I wrote it down, but it's right around $7 to $8 per passenger. But it's something we're benchmarking against. There's a lot of financial data, but that's something we benchmark ourselves against our peers and are always looking at.
So quite frankly, even with our increased fees, we still look much better than
Yes.
many of our peers.
Yes. And as we continue to get additional passenger activity, that'll draw down the CPE too. We don't want to be in the top quartile for sure. If we can stay in that middle of the range, that's my goal. So with that, any other questions?
Good. Do we, I guess we need to approve this?
Yes, please.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 4 is approved. Item 5.
Item 5 is received draft of fiscal year 24-25 TAIT annual operating budget to be considered at the June 2024 board meeting. The draft annual budget of $85,115,065. The draft budget also includes the TAIT schedule of rates, fees, and charges, the parking management system fee budget of $2.2 million, which is included in the TAIT budget. And we have a few slides to go over. So this first slide is our key performance indicators. It's on page 11 of your budget. We're estimating in plane passengers to have a modest increase of 2.4%. We've had a pretty good year so far this year. We think that's achievable. Our landing weights are going up, are projected to go up 9.5%, which brings us more in line with where we are today. And this, our airline cost per plane passenger is going from $8.14 to $10.51. That will go down in fiscal year 26 when we start having the revenue share portion. And then out of that, it'll go down about $1. So the revenue budget for just TUL, not including RBS, is a 17.5% increase. And our operating capital is relatively flat. The indicators for RBS are the aircraft operations, and they've been lowered in the past year or so because of the runway closures. We're predicting a 13% increase over what we budgeted for 24. Along with that, increase in fuel flow gallons sold of 12%, and their revenue budget is going up 5% based on economic indicator increases in their operating leases. They do not have any capital for fiscal year 25 budgeted. So this next slide is page 12. So it's balanced at $85,115,065. Your resources have to equal what you're going to use. Beginning cash is actually down 4.8%. It's because we're predicting more revenue. Actually, the PFC portion of debt service is a little bit more than last year. We get to use our PFC funds to pay for that. So overall, it's an 8.8% increase in both the resources and the resources used. So this slide is a summary of page 13. It shows our total revenue budget going up 17%. That's due to the rental rates going up, the square footage of the baggage claim, like Alexis talked about. We're predicting advertising revenues up about $25,000 to $50,000. The landing fees going up, parking, ground transportation, interest are the major reasons for the increase. So the next part is the operating expenses. The personnel services of that is going up 5%. That's we did budget a cost of living increase, and included in that is increased taxes, benefits, MRF, and medical. We also have a little bit budget for promotions and market adjustments. Materials and supplies is a nominal increase less than $100,000. Other service and charges is a 7% increase. We have some normal contract increases. Our janitorial is going up for their contract. Our fire is going up for their contract. Then we have an elevator where one of our elevators is coming off warranty, so it's going up. We've also hoped to do a freight study. We're bringing on a rent-a-car consultant, and we have increases in technology cost. And we'll talk about the capital here in a second. The net before debt service is estimated to be about $20 million. So debt service is about $13 million, so that's a net of $7 million. be used for capital and, you know, the airline revenue share. So the next slide is, our operating capital by division. There is a detailed list on page 17 of your budget book. So engineering has 750,000 budgeted for wayfinding, signage around the terminals. Technology has about $500,000. The big project being a private 4G network. Customer experience, well, marketing is has a plane spotting area. They want to make improvements to, or actually 2 areas. Our customer experience group is investing in our baggage system. We're buying a new flagpole. And we also have planned to buy an advanced imaging technology machine, as well as the gate information display replacement, sign replacement. Dispatch is getting improved workstation to improve their work environment. And we have a new shuttle bus plan for fiscal year 25.
So we were able to get the AIT machine added. And so this is a big win, I think, for our customers who are pre-check customers that have pacemakers or metal, and they typically have to come out of the pre-check lane into the standard screening lane. So once we're able to purchase that machine, those customers will not have to do that. So.
Okay, great.
This is our capital projects. It's on page 18 of your budget book. For fiscal year 25, we're really focusing on our airfield projects, doing designs for a lot of the projects to be constructed in a future fiscal year. We're also going to make improvements to the lower level restrooms, which are really out of date. Got some security fencing design going on. After the FIS build, the cargo pavement will not be any good anymore, so we're going to do the design to replace that. Got some PC air units, which we have applied for a grant for, although it doesn't reflect that on here. Got Mo shop and some elevator improvements, the QTA repair, and then we do have a valet storage facility, which we'll evaluate the need for later in the fiscal year. At RDS, we've got some drainage improvements planned, perimeter road improvements, and we hope to design the and widen or get the design underway for runway 13-31.
I'm just going to chime in for 1331 at Riverside. It's our crosswind runway. The FAA has told us they will not fund improvements to that runway because it doesn't meet the minimum wind requirements. We're paying for the design ourselves out of TAIT funding. Our intent is to get funding for that project. We're going to make the FAA officially tell us no, and then we're going to go to the state and ask the state to support it. The state thinks the FAA will maybe rethink it, but we do have some commitment from the state to fund that project. So
How far off are we on that wind wise?
I think we're at 3%. It has to be 5 or higher. Is that right?
So this slide is our carryover projects from 24. We had the perimeter road ongoing, and we had a lot of trouble getting that bid for an affordable amount. Of course, the air traffic control tower and the FIS are getting underway. We have an ARF truck. It's a carryover from fiscal year 24. The airfield electrical and the monument are going to slide on over into fiscal year 25. And then at RBS, we're still doing the security fencing project. So TAIT share of the capital projects for fiscal year 25 and the carryover from 24, including a 10% contingencies, $38.3 million. This is our debt service requirements for fiscal year 25. It's about $13 million. 32% of that comes from PFCs, 13% from CFCs, and the rest is rate-based revenues, 55%. This is our requirements by year. You can see it really drops off after fiscal year 2027. Right now, at the start of fiscal year 25, we'll be at $138 million in debt service. So this is our rates, fees, and charges. It starts on page 22 of your budget book. See, this is our airline rates have increased. Our non-SIGs go up by 1.25% of that. That's calculated on budget. The blended rate for signatories is 92.4 versus 68.9 last year. And the non-SIG was 86.10, the blended rate, and it's 115.5 for fiscal year 25. And our landing fees and our we're gonna charge more for non-return security badges. And when our contractors have to badge other workers, we're gonna require them to put down $100 deposit for badge. It's to encourage them to return the badge after the work is done. And our rental car rates go up along with the airline rates. And RVS, the IPDI increases are 3.7%, and the CPI increases are 3.5%. We're also requiring the hangar land lease insurance to increase from 500,000 to 1 million. And have any questions?
So we're asking you to receive this budget draft. Next month, we'll bring the budget to you for approval, and we'll let you know if there are any changes from this presentation.
We need a motion to accept, or
No.
it's just information on.
We just
Okay.
received it.
All right.
Very good. All right, item number 6. Go ahead.
Approve annual memorandum of understanding between the city of Tulsa and the Tulsa Airport's Improvement Trust regarding allocation of airport revenues to the city for services performed by the city in support of the airport for fiscal year 2025 in the amount of $40,837, effective July 1, 2024. This memorandum of understanding represents the amount paid to the city for actual support service for the city clerk, mayor, and mayor's office, city council, limited human resources services for MERV administration, and limited financial service, which are allowable under the FAA revenue use policy and federal grant insurances.
Any question?
That number the same as last year or slightly up? Little less.
About $4,000 less.
Okay.
Move approval number 6.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
6 is approved. Item 7.
Item 7 and item 8. Item 7 is rescind the April 11, 2024 resolution of TAIT and approve the following resolution of TAIT. And 8 is rescind the April 11, 2024 resolution of TAA and approve the following resolution of TAA. We did this last month. These resolutions authorized the issuance of a single bond as security for a $15 million revolving letter of credit from BOK Financial. And also the execution of various documents to accomplish the closing. It also authorizes our bond counsel, which is Hawkins, Delphil and Wood, special TAIT counsel Jason Coutant at Gable Gottwalls, financial advisor Mike Newman, Hilltop Securities. And just to reiterate the question that was asked last month about the interest is paid only on the amount drawn. So
And this is all because of one little.
according, the statutes require a 3/4 majority to waive competitive bidding. And then we are waiving competitive bidding, but we did have a competitive solicitation.
Right.
We had 5 or 6 bids on this
Right.
deal. So
Okay,
So, and we need to vote on these separately, so.
okay. I'd move
Yes.
approval for number 7.
And
Pardon
we're doing both 7 and 8 at once.
me? No.
Well, separately.
Yes. So I have a motion for number 7.
You have a motion, you have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
8,
Move approval 8.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item 9,
Item 9 is to approve a builder's risk insurance policy through Star Specialty Lines Insurance Agency in the amount of $140,981 for coverage during the construction of the general aviation FIS facility. The deductible will be 1% of the insurable value at the time of the loss, so it goes up as more value gets added. We got 2 other quotes from Zurich and Everest Re. They weren't really competitive.
What's the total value of construction?
The total value of construction is $34,888,000. And so I think that's a pretty good rate. Builder's risk covers materials on the ground and in transit, and equipment.
that is,
Move approval number 9.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
It's approved. Item 10.
Item 10, approve revisions to the TAIT employee handbook. In the notes, it says effective July 1st, 2024. That's for a portion of it, but for everything else to be effective immediately. It's in tab 6 of your binder, lists out all the significant updates that are going on here. I want to cover a couple of them. The first one being section 4.21 and 4.19 for our drug-free workplace policy. We've added language in our policy that helps us comply with the Drug-Free Workplace Act of 1988, which requires us to inform our employees of drug testing, and then also to inform the Department of Transportation and the FAA if there's a conviction of a drug law for one of our employees. So we've included that. And then the significant change for this update is our PTO policy. So moving all of our employees from a sick and vacation policy to a PTO policy. As you're aware, we've implemented a PTO policy for all employees hired after January 1st of 2023. But we thought it was important to roll everyone over. It just aligns with industry best practices, what's going on with a number of employers. And so these changes will take effect really beginning in June. At the bottom of that revision, we will begin converting sick on a 2-to-1 basis. And then PTO or vacation time will convert to a 1-to-1. And so combining those, if an employee has over 440 hours of PTO time at that point, we will cut them a check towards the end of June, before the end of the fiscal year for that time. For employees that have under 440, on the next page of the handbook, you can see our new accrual schedule. Our max accrual now will move to 480 hours, where previously our vacation time was just over 400 hours and our sick time was 1,200 hours. And so this significantly reduces the number of the dollar amount we've got to carry on our books for vacation time and sick time. And so this has been, we informed our employees, we had a meeting with our employees, we received feedback, we went back to the table, looked at some things, made some improvements based on their feedback. So this is shared with the entire organization. We have an all-employee meeting this afternoon. We plan to share these updates with them after your approval, but we'd recommend approval of item number 10.
Questions?
No, I appreciate you reaching out to everybody, and I know this is hard, but you can't have 2 separate
Right.
in PTO or vacation policies. So and it is standard across the board, and we just went through the same thing with our company. So
Yeah.
I would move approval for number 10.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 11.
Item 11 is to approve a joint resolution of TAIT and the Tulsa Airport Authority naming the new air traffic control tower complex in honor of Senator James Inhofe. Really in recognition of a lifetime of contributions to the aviation industry here in the state of Oklahoma, specifically here in Tulsa, but really across the United States. He's always been an engaged aviator, advocating for pilot rights, has made significant impact in the state of Oklahoma, received the Air Evangelist Award from the Oklahoma Airport Operators Association. And in my short tenure here, I worked very closely with him and his staff on several projects that benefit the airport. He was able, through a congressionally designated spending request, to get $5 million allocated for our customs facility. And then, of course, for this project, when we first started talking about needing a tower, he and his team were saying, what can we do to help? Then we thought we needed $10 million, and then that grew to $20 million. And ultimately, he was able to get a $40 million allocation for this tower project, which I would say if we had not received that, I don't know that we could have got this project to the point that we're at today.
Right.
And so we will be asking you all to adopt a resolution. And every board member today will be asked to sign it. I would like to just read a portion of it, if I may. Whereas Tulsa Airport's Improvement Trust is constructing a new air traffic control tower complex to replace the existing tower and base building, which were constructed in 1961. And whereas during the planning stages, the trustees considered the lifelong legacy of support and contribution Senator Inhofe has made to the city of Tulsa and the nation's aviation infrastructure through legislation and appropriations. And whereas in honor of that legacy, the trustees recommended to Mayor G.T. Bynum that the new air traffic control tower complex be named in his honor, in Senator Inhofe's honor. Whereas upon recommendation of the trustees of Tulsa Airport's Improvement Trust, Mayor Bynum appointed an ad hoc advisory committee to consider naming the new tower complex in honor of Senator Inhofe pursuant to the city policy for naming of public facilities. Whereas the committee found that the naming of the air traffic control tower complex was consistent with that policy, and that and persons who have rendered significant public service to Tulsa or the nation who have distinguished themselves in the work of the city of Tulsa. Whereas on the 29th day of November, 2023, the City Council of the City of Tulsa, in accordance with the committee's findings, adopted a resolution finding that Senator Inhofe was instrumental in approving legislation and supporting appropriations, providing critical infrastructure to the nation's airports, including Tulsa International Airport. Whereas such findings of the City Council were consistent with the conclusions and recommendations of the Tulsa Airports Improvement Trust. And whereas the Tulsa Airports Improvement Trust, finding that Senator James Inhofe has distinguished himself in the rendering of significant support to Tulsa International Airport and the nation's infrastructure and to the city of Tulsa, wish to honor Senator Inhofe by naming the air traffic control tower complex in his honor. Now therefore be it resolved that Tulsa Airports Improvement Trust recognize Senator James Inhofe and his legacy of service and impact on the Tulsa International Airport, our nation's aviation infrastructure, and to the city of Tulsa by naming the air traffic control tower complex at Tulsa International Airport, the James M. Inhofe Air Traffic Control Tower Complex. That in recognition of such naming, a plaque or similar prominent installation will be affixed to the control tower complex, which denotes such an honor. That this resolution is made, hopefully by unanimous approval, effective May 9th, 2024 by the trustees of Tulsa Airports Improvement Trust. And I would just say, Mr. Inhofe, Senator Inhofe, is a longstanding tenant of Riverside Airport and continues to be today. And I just would like to personally thank him and his team, because it has been a Herculean effort to get to this point, and the negotiations that took place behind the scenes on Capitol Hill in order to secure this $40 million is greatly appreciated. And so with that, I would like to recommend this, and I know that this board stands with me in appreciation for all that he has done.
I know that in the last 25 years, I've had the pleasure of working with him through the Oklahoma Space Industry Development Authority, through the Aeronautics Commission, through the Oklahoma Aerospace Alliance, and through TAIT. And he's always been approachable. His staff has always been there for us. He shows up every year at the Oshkosh huge air show and is just there for the people that fly. And this is his passion. And I thoroughly approve of this.
This is certainly something we all, I think, approve of. One quick question, the tower will remain, the call sign will be Tulsa International Tower, is that correct?
Right, so the identifier KTUL, TUL does not change. This is just a way for us to acknowledge the contribution.
I'm very much in favor of it. I
Yeah.
just want to make sure the tower name
Yeah.
doesn't change
It will
for
not.
confusion purposes.
Right.
Right.
Very good. Do I have a motion?
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous.
Thank you all.
Item 12.
Item 12, we started a journey many years ago. First order, look at this.
long ago.
Yeah, to build a tower here at TUL, this is a rendering of it. And it seems like just a year ago, we started this. And it's gonna feel like just a couple of weeks, we're gonna have a picture of the actual tower up here. I know it's gonna be 2 to 3 years, but it's gonna seem like just months. In any case, with that, item 12 is accept bids and approve award a contract for the air traffic control tower and base building project to Flimco LLC in the amount of $76,900,000. On March 26th of this year, we received 3 bids for the construction of the tower. The highest of the bids was $85,500,000. The engineer's estimate was 5.4% below the lowest responsible bidder, and their estimate was approximately $73 million. This next slide, there's a few things I'd like to point out, a little bit of history. Back in November of last year, we asked you to approve a reimbursable agreement with the FAA in the amount of $17.7 million. That was going to be for the FAA labor involved for the tower, their labor expenses. After receiving this bid of roughly $77 million, we went back to the FAA again and asked them to look at the reimbursable agreement to identify if there's anything they could cut, because we weren't certain we were going to be able to do the tower. Well, they came back to us and said, yeah, we can cut our labor by $10 million. So that reimbursable agreement that you approved last fall is only going to be about $7.5 million versus $17.5 million. So that has helped out. September of last year, you approved a memorandum of agreement, the $40 million that Alexis was talking about. The FAA would be taking $17 million of that for equipment, for their equipment for the tower and the base building. And then we would receive the remaining $23 million. Earlier this week, we invoiced the government or the FAA for $23 million. And of that, the $7.5 million will go back to the FAA for their labor. So we'll be receiving about $15.5 million of that reimbursement, of that memorandum of agreement. Earlier this year, it was announced that we would receive $12.5 million from ATP grant, which is Airport Terminal Program. I will also be going back for a second grant. That original ATP was at around 25 million was a request. We only got half. So I'm going to go back for the other half and see if we can get that. Indication is that we'll probably be able to do that. In any case, if there are any questions Love to entertain them. If not, management recommend approval of item 12.
You guys have done a great job.
Yeah,
Really.
it's a lot of moving pieces and it's taken a long time, but a lot of great team effort in order to do this, and this will get us where our traffic control isn't in Kansas City. I mean, we gotta keep that in mind, because that was gonna be basically the only option, so.
No more Winnebagos.
Yeah. Being able to have a new tower is really
Something very special.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hear a motion.
I move approval for item number 12.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 13, change orders.
Item 13, approved change order number 2 with Ellsworth Construction LLC, an amount of $1,500 for the employee parking lot A expansion. We're expanding the parking lot to the south. If you haven't noticed, this spring seemed to have been a little wet. It seemed like every time the contractor would get the area somewhat dry, we'd have another rain. That rain was coming across the existing parking lot and dumping into the cut for the expansion. The contractor also had some problems with the way they were doing things. They could not get the area dry. But because of the water dumping off of the existing parking lot, we feel that if they went in and put in a geogrid, which is fabric, which will bridge some of the soft soil, it would be advantageous to the project. So we went ahead and said, yes, we will agree to pay about $1,500 of that to take care of that immediately off of the existing parking lot. This project, or this change order, has 0.6% increase, not a negative, but a positive, since bid, and management would recommend approval of item 13.
We have a motion.
Move approval.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 13 is approved. Item 14.
Item 14 is a change order for the FIS, or the customs facility. Since posting of this agenda, we have continued to negotiate with the contractor. The numbers on the agenda have changed since the posting, so I will go ahead and read the proper number as we get through it. Item 14 is approved change order number 2 with Flintco LLC in the amount of $149,013.72. This is for the customs facility project. There's some reduction in cost due to a sewer line relocation, some additional costs due to expansion of PCC, Portland cement concrete pavement, rerouting fiber optic cabling, gas line, water lines, and hydrovacking to identify the exact location of utilities. One other item, this does include an additional 21 days of the contract that was negotiated. We started out with $162,000 original change order. We've reduced that by $13,000 to come to where we are today. One of the big concerns that we had was the hydrovacking for identifying utilities. We went around trying to find out why we had to do that. When the consultant went in and did the initial plan, they did ground penetrating radar. So basically they went through there and they identified what was down below. That went into the design. Once we got a bid and the contractor came out, they did a second ground penetrating radar. And can you believe they did not come up to show the same thing? Some things were missing on one, some things were in different locations. So to be safe and not hurt any of the utilities, and the contractor is going to peel back the concrete, and then they're going to go in there with a hydrovacking, which basically is jetting water in there and then sucking it back up, removing the dirt, but leaving the utilities. They're gonna do this on a grid basis to identify exactly where the utilities are. That way, it's gonna be a whole lot safer than going in there with a hoe and start ripping and possibly finding it that way.
Yeah.
We do have a representative of Flintco here, if you have any questions directly to ask to them. But, total change orders on this project, as I said, this one is $149,013.72. The total change so far is an increase of 0.2%. Total cost of the project anticipated is $34,955,566.72. And just for comparison, in 2012, when we gutted and rebuilt Concourse B, construction alone of that project was $25 million. So we're looking at what, 12 years since. So management recommend approval if there's no questions or concerns with item 14.
Yeah, where those are located, those are kind of main service lines and to the whole terminal. So that's the last thing you want to do. I think this is,
Money well spent.
money well spent, being cautious, because, we gotta keep the terminal open, and it would disrupt everything. So I would make, a motion for, 14.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
15,
I'd like to take item 15 and 16 together, if you don't mind. Item 15 is approved change order number 1 with Kansas Companies Incorporated in the amount of negative $19,600. And item 16 is accept project and approve final payment to M&B Companies Incorporated in the amount of, this is an error, it should read $710,300. Both of these are for the rotary plow or a blower project. The reduction came with a delay in delivery of the equipment of 98 days, $200 a day for liquidated damages, equated to the $19,600. So this project ended up a negative 2.7% from the bid price, and total contract cost of this blower would be $710,300. Management recommend approval of items 15 and 16.
motion,
So moved.
Second.
all those in favor of items 15 and 16?
Aye.
Item 17,
Item 17 is accept project and approve final payment to APAC Central Incorporated in the amount of $178,071.90 for the Riverside Taxiway Connector Phase 1 project. We have 2 phases of the connector taxiways down at Riverside, connecting taxiway Alpha to the main runway. This is phase 1, which is north of the crosswind runway, or 1331. The contractor, this was an FAA funded project. DBE goal at the time of bid was 6.7. The contractor elected 6.7 at the time of bid, and their actual utilization was 8.97%. This project completed with basically a 0.5% increase due to changes. Total contract cost for this project is $3,111,438. And management recommend approval of item 17.
Move approval 17.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Items 18 and 19.
That's one. Items 18 and 19, gonna consider together, if that's okay for you. Item 18, approve amendment number 1 to sublease agreement between TAIT and United States Aviation Company to add approximately 250,600 square feet and adjust rents accordingly. Item 19, approve agreement to sublease land between TAIT and the United States Aviation Company. There is some contiguous land there that remains in floodplain. With the help of city, I've been able to get approval to take some of that out so that we can move forward on this agreement, which you've seen once before. But now that we've gotten that approval, we'll move forward. Remains a little bit there adjacent to Memorial behind that where this facility will go. And at the point that we're able to get that out of floodplain, we'll automatically add that to this agreement. But excited to move forward. As Alexis mentioned, some good development on our airside facilities between this and the quick fit hangar, working on a couple of other facility options that we hope to have agreement on here soon. So I'm looking forward to this development and future development in the area.
Okay.
Approval 18, 19.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 20 and 21.
So we're gonna withdraw 21. Yesterday, our city legal figured out a way to get this all done on one document, so we're happy for that. So number 20 is approve a estoppel consent and recognition agreement by and among TAIT, ET1, and Goldman Sachs, and some other banks. This is the ET1 is Tulsa One is the Amazon facility. They're doing some financing. And this is just standard estoppel.
Move approval, item number 20.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 22.
Item 22 is to approve a concession agreement with Bada Boom, doing business as Mythic Press. This is for a t-shirt vending machine and then a baggage claim.
Okay,
Move approval.
All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
I missed the second, sorry.
Mary,
Thank you.
Items 23 through 26, we did that together.
Items 23 through 26 are all standard RBS items related to tenant action at Riverside. We have conducted inspections of all of these facilities, and they're all at the standard published terms. We would ask for your approval, 23 through 26.
move approval 23 through 26.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 27.
A motion to enter executive session.
So move.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We'll go to executive session. That's what I was trying to get.
Really?
Okay.
Joe
We're good to
Robson, and a second.
Second.
I didn't-
And Mary, second.
Okay,
All those in favor?
now we're going to
Aye.
open the special meeting of the Tulsa.
No, we gotta vote on,
Huh?
Motion to adjourn.
29.
Motion to- I'll say, I'll
well,
say. All in
we don't
favor?
need
Aye.
any,
All
no
those in
action.
favor?
Aye.
Yeah, I'll report that.
Yeah,
Can I get to this now?
yeah.
Thank you. Over the special meeting of the Tulsa International Airport Development Trust.
Did we get a
No,
motion to adjourn?
we didn't.
We did.
We
Oh,
did.
That
okay.
was it.
I missed the second.
Mary
Mary.
second.
I gotta talk louder.
I've never had so much trouble
Aye.
getting out of a meeting in my life.
And then we have to have a vote.
Do we have a vote? All in
We did.
favor?
Yes, everybody said yes.
We have it on video.
Right.
So,
Right after the front.
Right after.
okay. Yes, sir.
Okay,
TAIT.
we're now in the special meeting of the Tulsa International Airport Development Trust. Thursday, May 9th, 2024. Call the meeting to order. We have approval of the minutes of the last meeting on
So moved.
October 14th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item number 3.
Item 3 will be to approve development and finance assistance agreement by and between Tulsa International Airport Development Trust and Quick Trip Corporation. This is for the construction of their new hangar, and specifically this is with the stormwater relocation that would be required as part of that. They were able to sharpen their pencil. We obviously already approved the hangar, but was with the understanding that they would have this following. We're expecting a $3.7 million at least minimum cost on the hangar, and the assistance that we'll be providing is up to $250,000 or 65% of the actual collections.
Okay, move approval. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 3 is approved.
Item 4, this is one that we had brought to you a few months ago, and we had a fail-safe date in there that if they weren't able to get their agreements and move forward with their development in time, that we would mutually terminate the agreement so it wasn't just standing out there. And this is for Camo Farms Cowboy Asphalt. So number 4 is to rescind development finance assistance agreement by and between Tulsa International Airport Development Trust and Camo Farms LLC, DBA as Cowboy Asphalt. As a reminder, this would have been in our TIP District E, which we had not started or begun until we were sure that they were moving forward with their process. They hit some snags in that development related to their plans and what they were able to do there. So again, this is taking it back off of our.
Okay. So we actually need approval, even though it's a rescission, we're rescinding it.
We're approving the
Yeah,
rescission.
I'd
Move
move
of
approval number
rescission.
4.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any old business?
Move adjourn.
Any new business? Move to adjourn.
Second.
Done.
All in favor?
Aye.